like your everything is okay. The
Does it
setup.
look okay? Okay. Can people hear me on Instagram too, or is it too far
Yeah,
away?
because I'm hearing you.
You
Yeah.
can hear me? Okay, great.
So
Awesome.
they hear you as well, and you can
Awesome.
share it later to your profile. I don't know how to minimize the sound though. I've tried. Okay. Hello, hello. And we're live also on Facebook. Facebook Mentoring for Translators group, starting out as a translator group, and on YouTube. So we're going to share later. Let's wait a bit to see people coming in. Please do let us know if you can hear us well. Watch us. Where are you watching us from? And we are live at the Mentoring for Translators Ask Your Mentor Anything sessions. It's become like my routine, my weekly routine. Every week we are going live with some well-esteemed colleagues until now from Europe. And I'm so happy today because it's the first time that I have an invited speaker mentor from the other side of the Atlantic. And let's welcome it's Jennifer Nielsen from Mexico. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me. I really enjoy what you're doing. I think it's awesome.
Thank you so much for being so active in the field anyway. With Jennifer, we met at the Translation Mastermind. We were both speakers there. It was an online event, and also we were also friends on social media. So today's topic is one of my favorites. Before you introduce yourself, I'm just going to say a few words about our today's topic is the mindset. I've been posting, for those who follow me on Instagram or other social media, they will see that I'm posting regularly about mindset because I think it's very important, the mindset, in order to become successful, not only as a translator, but in any profession, I think. Like if you have the right mindset, you can attract what you want. And I see that Jennifer agrees. So today's topic is how important is mindset and how to cultivate a mindset that will help you to become successful as a translator. And I guess like what Jennifer is going to tell us today might apply to other professions as well, like freelancers in general. So would you be kind to let us know a bit more about yourself for the members that they do not know you already, Jennifer?
Yeah, I would be happy to. I'm Jennifer Nielsen. I have been a translator now, Spanish into English. I'm from Colorado, United States, but I ran away to Mexico in 2010. And I went to Guadalajara to study my master's degree in translation and interpreting there. And there I also became the president of the Organización Mexicana de Traductores, the Mexican Translators Association. And I started giving courses and doing classes. And most recently in the past year, I've started doing more online courses for official document translation, as well as now getting more into mindset. So yeah, that's the long and short of it.
Until when you were president of the association, the Mexican Association of Translators there?
You know what? It was for 2 years. It was in 2014, and it looks like this year, actually, the emails just went out. I'm going to be, looks like, president. I'm a candidate president of the Colorado Translators Association now too. So yeah, that's going to be exciting.
Yeah, isn't it? Great. Are you going to attend the ATA this year?
I have not ever gone yet. It's always been really difficult timing for me because it's also when the Mexican Translators Association annual conferences. So I've usually gone to that, but the past couple of years, it's just the timing has been really bad, and it's a huge investment.
So we can organize something like that. So most of the times with the speakers that we invite in the group, I ask them some questions that they are most common. From my mentees, I've gathered some of them, and I think that most of translators and freelancers are interested in, like, how did you start out as a translator? You told some things, but is there something specific that you would like to tell about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. I actually, I have, and I'm sure like almost all of you and all of your members of your people starting out, we were interested in languages from a really young age. I was interested in Spanish since I think first grade when I was in a bilingual class in Colorado. So from there, I started studying it all the way through school, got a BA in Spanish, and I never really had any idea that it was possible to be a translator, right? I mean, especially, I'm going to date myself a little bit. Back when I was in college, it wasn't an option. Nobody was like, oh, you should try being a translator, or it's the job. The only thing that I had known about was court interpreting. So I kind of started out with this notion that I thought I would be a court interpreter. And I actually took Corinne McKay's course, How to Succeed as a Freelance Translator, in 2007.
Okay.
Which is when I really first, thought about it seriously and thought I would try to do it. And I immediately realized that I did not have the language skills yet to be able to be a translator. And so that was kind of how I started to move to Mexico and study my master's degree. And yeah, that was really when it started.
Okay, that's you give me the opportunity to say, like, when we mentor our mentees, like, you have to have the skills first in order to have a mentor to help you get into the business. So we do not have to neglect the language skills and the actual translation skills. It's something that you have to have already in order to find someone to help you find your first clients and get into the market. So hello, Antonio from London says, and hello, Patricia from Portugal. They're watching us on YouTube, and we are live also on Instagram. I'm seeing some Greek translators there, and also Patricia is watching us from both YouTube and Instagram. So it's pretty funny. As a matter of fact, so how did you find your first client?
My first client or my first jobs, I got through my contacts in where I was studying at my master's degree, my teachers and my contacts there, my fellow classmates, mostly because, and I think that this made a huge difference, is that I came to Mexico as a native English speaker, translating obviously into English. So I think, I made a lot of relationships with my teachers, with my colleagues, with my classmates, with, people in the community there that are expats or English speakers or just business people. So I was able to do that through expat groups, through contacts at school. And so actually my very first client, now that I think about it, was a businessman in Guadalajara who was setting up businesses, and he was going around town to meetings and, doing stuff in English. His Spanish was, very rudimentary. And he was speaking in English to all these people who say they spoke English. And he would, go to a meeting and they would decide on something, and then what they decided on wouldn't happen. And so he was like, I don't know what's going on here. He's like, they're saying they speak English. He's like, but I think I need an interpreter to come to these meetings with me. So I started working with him and going to, companion interpreting with him for a lot of meetings. And he's actually turned out to be a very long time client and good friend of mine.
So the first time that he contacted you was where? Through the expert groups that you said?
Actually, through my boyfriend at the time, when I was studying there. He was a lawyer, and so he had a contact that was actually this guy's businessman's lawyer, and he was discussing to him how frustrated that he was with his meetings, and that he felt like he needed, somebody who was an English speaker, Spanish speaker, to do that. And since I was just studying my interpreting degree at that point, it worked out really well.
So as a matter of fact, this was a referral. We can, like, if we want to categorize, like, the way that you found your first client was through a referral, which is the most common client acquisition strategy, like according to statistics. So for those that they're starting out right now and they're listening to us, or they're going to listen to us later, Jennifer already mentioned 3 ways of finding your first client, like being active in the expat groups where you are, or having a close relationship with your professors and keep in touch, and with colleagues in general,
Yes.
networking, as we say. And
Yeah.
do you remember the time that you did scale up as a translator?
I don't think I can, pinpoint like a time, because frankly, from the time that I started studying my master's degree, I was 100% all in as a translator, and I have never gotten a real job or done, other work really outside of translating and interpreting. So scale up. I think it really happened really gradually throughout the years. I feel like it's been something, like I said, since 2010, it's been something that's just little by little, kind of a snowballed effects. And some years are better than others. Sometimes are better than others. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I have the same experience as you. It was gradually, like one year after the other, one client after the other. But there is a point in our career, I can share mine, like when you get a client that you can issue a very high invoice, like you can stay without project, for example, 3 or 4 months, or the time that you worked for a famous company or a very big client, like you've always dreamed of. So is there any such moment in your career?
When I think back in the beginning of it, so I guess I probably think of 2 points where I was really excited like that. The first one was when I got my first long-term project. When I was starting out, I got a long-term project for textbook translation, actually, with Santiana. And that was one of my biggest moments where I was like, oh my gosh, at least I know where how I'm gonna eat for the next 6 months, year.
Okay, that's another way, to describe the way that a translator can scale up. It's not only a big client, not only a client if you ever dream, but might be a very longer term cooperation agreement with a very stable income for several months. So thank you for sharing this. And I bet that you have shared already your connection, your relationship with mentoring. You said you were a president of an association. You've said that you taught several courses. So is there anything else you would like to say about this experience of yours?
Yes, I've always loved mentoring translators and a teacher. I actually, before I became a translator, I was a high school Spanish teacher for a couple of years. And so I got a degree in teaching and, have kind of a background in teaching. And so I've always really enjoyed helping other people out. So as soon as I, started on this path and got some, I don't know, what would you say, recognition, but started growing, I felt like I wanted to help other translators always. So it's something that I've always really enjoyed, is helping other translators, because when I started out, I felt like I had a few mentors that were really, really key in helping me out, because there are so few ways for us to really find out how to do, there's just no orientation in general, right? Like you get a regular job and you get, a whole manual of how to do what you're supposed to do. And when you become a freelance translator, it's just so wide open, and you have no idea. Like you're all of a sudden an entrepreneur, an accountant, a businessman, a social media manager, a content creation, collections. There's so many different things that you have to do. Learn how to do your taxes. It's so many things that you just really don't have any idea how to do. And it's a really steep learning curve. And so what I like to do is, to help people not have such a steep learning curve.
And isn't it for me, it's a bit shocking, until nowadays, even though I've been almost 15 years in the business, it's still so vague. Translators starting out, they have the same questions I did have when I did start out, even though there is so much information out there online and offline, much more than the information that we did have when we started out. But still, it's very difficult for translators to get into the translation market. I keep receiving questions like how to start out, how to get into the translation market. like almost every week for this session. So we might have to do another session for this question. But it's, yeah, for me, it's a bit shocking, surprising, like still translators have the same problems when they start out. So I think it's very helpful to have initiatives like this, like yours, you said, of associations too. So, one most common question: what is your favorite like client acquisition strategy, like, or a way to find clients where you want to get out of a slump, for example? Is there any strategy or a way of client acquisition that you would like to share?
Yeah, honestly, I don't. In my opinion, there's no such thing as quick fixes. You know, if you're having it's a long game, like it's all a long game strategy. And to me, the only thing that has ever worked for me personally that I feel comfortable with, I've tried a lot of things that I either just felt icky about or salesy about or just didn't work for me. But just relationships, constantly building relationships with people and talking about what you do, building yourself as an authority in what you do and not being afraid to talk about it with your friends, with your colleagues, with people who you run into on the street. It's not because I always feel like I almost even like hid it, right? I was always really introverted and shy and was like, nobody even cares about translation or anything like that. But frankly, it's really interesting, and it's not always, you know, I don't want to say fun to talk about it to other people, because a lot of people, obviously, they just don't get it, right? They don't even get that it's a job, that it's a thing, especially with so many bilingual people in my language pair. Everybody who thinks that there is bilingual thinks that they're a translator. So, but that's not really the point. The point is that when you start to make form genuine relationships with people, they think of you. And I think that that's part of what Mexican culture has taught me, is that it's really valuable to forge relationships with people. And that's really, to me, the best way to grow your client base in a long-term strategy. All my clients almost have come from referral, like you say, in some way or another, or connections that I have made with people that I didn't think would necessarily work out. So
yeah, but you said, there's something very interesting, like building an authority, which means behind it there is so much work, like taking course or become visible, or you said also social media manager, which means that you are there, you exist in social media, offline, online, everywhere, and other people to know what are you doing. And it's very funny, as you said, like, for example, here in Greece, my family or family members, they ask me, what are you doing exactly? So we do not talk about what we're doing. And so we have a question from Francis Rodriguez about what you were just saying, like you're talking about building relationships, which is very crucial for me too. What is your approach to build relationships with clients?
So I think that part of this is it's something to do it as naturally as possible. So, for example, it's something that you have to do little by little. So, for example, you have a company, and I remember, I think you talked about just this, what I'm going to say in your presentation about LinkedIn. So, for example, there's a company that you really want to work for, right? You look at that company, you follow their page, you start to look at who the people are who work there. You kind of try to identify the person who might be the person in charge of possibly hiring people. You start to like some of their posts over a period of a week or a couple of weeks. You start to comment on stuff. You try to get in groups where they are also active, where you can see that it's an industry group. You start to try and comment on things and add information that's valuable to people that you know, and so that, again, you can start to build yourself as an authority in that field and with that group of people. And so as people start to recognize you, you're not going to, so some people's strategy, right, is right away, I see that person, I'm going to send them a direct message, right, offering my services. 9 out of 10 times, or even a lot of times in my experience, 10 out of 10 times, people ignore that. they don't want to be sold to. It's really obvious anymore. But if you have been, building up this authority over, weeks and or months, all of a sudden they recognize your name and you can say, hey, I reach out in a very casual way to say, hey, I read this article, or I really liked this post that you shared and I wanted to thank you. So to me, it's more about doing it in a way that you don't look like a jerk. You don't look like a salesy weirdo. You're actually somebody that they might even want to hear from, is really the idea. That's where
so what Jennifer said already, Francis, I hope Jennifer answered your question, but in general, building relationships is something long-term. You have to show your real interest in what your client is doing in their business, and that you are there for him. That could be a very interesting discussion on social media like LinkedIn, already said Jennifer, or any other social media, or even offline at a networking event like after the coronavirus. Or wherever your client exists, like would be a LinkedIn group, would be another social media profile, would be a blog that they write something interesting and you can comment there, or even, as I told you, offline, where you can find them and give them your business card and say something about their latest product, for example, they launched something like that. Francis, please do let us know if we have answered your question, and if not, Jennifer and I will be here anyway later. If you're a member in the Mentoring for Translators group, you can become now, because I have all the social media here. I'm not pretty sure where they are asking the questions from. Might be the page, might be the group, might be YouTube channel. And for those who are seeing me doing this, is because I have here also the Instagram open. So for those that they're using Instagram, they can watch us from there. And a lot of people, they say that I find you on Facebook, I'm going to watch you from Facebook. So they're living from doing Facebook, or the other way around. So Jennifer, was pretty interesting what you said already. So why not to get into our today's topic, because you gave a very nice masterclass this Wednesday. And I'm looking forward to listen to your input in this very interesting topic. And I think it's the base for any successful entrepreneur or a freelancer or translator, the mindset. So what is the mindset? I would like to know. And for those who do not believe in mindset, what is the mindset?
Mindset is a skill, right? It's a skill, just like translating is a skill. It's the ability to shape your beliefs in a way that is intentional, right? So it's building an intentional way of thinking about things and about seeing the world, and using your brain to work for you instead of against you. I think that a lot of times we don't realize how much we really are our own worst enemy, because our mindset is not right.
So you want to start out like you had a moment in your career that it was like a life-changing and career-changing moment?
Yeah, that's exactly. I usually start talking about my burnout moment, because that was really the turning point for me, as far as when I really clicked to me that mindset was my problem. I had, again, like I said, I had my BA in Spanish, I had my master's in Spanish, I had all of this experience. And then I had my two children. They're twins. They're 5 now. They're going to be 6 in April. And when I had my children, I kind of switched off as far as actually like taking care of myself. I was really only working like on my business and being totally involved with obviously my kids. And so I completely neglected the whole like mindset part and self-care part, and because I've always been super practical. Again, like I said, I study and I take courses and I read books and I learn about marketing, and none of it was really feel like, to me, I felt like I was burnt out. I was totally burnt out, and until I realized that it wasn't what I thought it was. I thought like the next course was going to help me if I do this next marketing campaign, if I write enough blogs, if I do this or that. But it really, to me, until I realized that it was internal work that I needed to do, that was when it changed, when I realized I needed to go inside myself first.
Okay, so for many women, it's like common case, like they have a burnout or a turning point in their career when they have babies. And how did you realize that it was a burnout then?
Because I got to a point where I literally, I was thinking of getting a real job. I was like, this is not working. I'm exhausted and I'm working and working and working and feeling like I'm not getting ahead. I'm not getting what I want to. My job, I'm hating what I'm doing. Although, which was obviously really hard because it's like, I love translating. I love my work. I always have. And that's why I started doing it. And then all of a sudden I realized that I had built myself a jail of sorts, a hamster wheel is what I usually call it, of work, right? Like I'm just on this hamster wheel all the time, doing only urgent and important tasks and never really working towards my larger goals or even realizing what those larger goals are because I didn't ever take the time to think about it.
And you also do not have a clear mind, for example, or maybe
exactly.
the right thoughts in your mind. So how important is a mindset in general before you tell us how did you overcome the situation?
Mindset is everything. That's really what I've learned. Frankly, if you have the right mindset, you can really do anything. I mean, especially more and more, even the scientists are telling us about how strong that our brains are and how we really do create our own experience by what we believe and our thoughts.
So it's very important because what we believe, this is what we do actually and what the results we have. And how did changing or cultivating the right mindset help you with the burnouts? And how did you do that? How did you succeed afterwards?
Yeah, no, it helped me. Everything changed. All of a sudden, I had more self-confidence. I was always really painfully I had this insecurity, especially around social media. I was always really insecure about being myself. I felt like, oh no, like people aren't going to like it, or I'm going to turn off my possible clients, or somebody who might want to work with me might see that I posted that or this or that. And so I had all these insecurities about it. So I was able to, again, first of all, be myself, and then be obviously the self-confidence that comes with that. And then to me, that's what allows you to attract your kind of people, because we're not for everybody, which is great. We don't want to be for everybody. We want to attract our people.
Yeah, all jobs and all professions are like that, especially the freelancing professions. Like not all clients are for you. And the sooner we realize that, the sooner we identify our ideal clients, the sooner we are going to see the results, and it's the best for us in order to go to a successful career. If you do not know which the market that you target your services and the client that you would really love to work with, then you are going to lose the path to the success. So we have another comment for, we cannot see the name because they have to go up of the live to see a link. Click there and give the permission to show the name. But says 17 years ago, I also thought about getting a regular 9-to-5 job. Okay, it would have been the worst decision of all. Thank you for sharing your experience and yes, mindset saver. Thank you so much for this comment. It's really helpful. And yeah, it might not be for everyone a burnout. It might be several other occasions that we might feel the same, like I want to get a real job, or I want to quit, or I want something like I don't want to go after clients every day, and I don't want, like I'm very tired or exhausted or whatever. For all of us, it doesn't have to be a burnout, for example, or the birth of our children in order to feel the same like Jennifer described right now. So might be several occasions different among us. So if you would like to share any of your story, you can do that too. And I think it's a pretty common occasion in our profession. I've had it many times from translators, like I thought about quitting my job. What is your answer to this? How do you help them?
To me, again, like I said, it's mindset. It's mindset, and and a lot of the same stuff that I hear you talking about, right? It's mindset. It's specializing. It's finding a way to make it work for you, which is a big thing. And the other thing is understanding your motivations and your priorities. So I think that a lot of times we don't realize why we're actually doing things. For example, obviously we're translating because we need money, right? And we need to have a job, but it's not always the most important thing. The more that I get into it, the more I want is time. I value my time more than money. Identity is another one. Your motivations are not always about money. So, when you're trying to prioritize what kind of work that you want to do or what it is that you have as your long-term goals, it's really important to sit down and understand why you're doing those things, because it can make you understand and be able to handle the sacrifice more, right? You can, then get through it and feel better.
So it might not work for all, but what Jennifer already suggested in order to overcome such a situation and to find your why, because for all of us or any of us might be different, the why we are doing what we are doing now and all the things that we are doing. And the second thing that you mentioned was prioritization.
Yes.
I'm pronouncing right. So these are the two things that Jennifer already suggested in order to find your path to the right mindset. So I would really like to get into that in more detail about mindset and how to cultivate a mindset that will help you to become successful.
Yeah, so I think that some of the biggest things that I've learned about the concepts and actual tools that have really helped me are in a few books that I really highly recommend. I don't know if you have read Gay Hendricks, The Big Leap.
The Big Leap. And we're going to share them later in the group. The Big Leap.
Yeah, that's a big one. And to me, that was a huge eye-opener. I had all these light bulbs go off, especially around number one, finding your genius zone. And so to me, I feel like that was something that I didn't do, I think. And he talks about these 4 zones, right? So we have our zones of incompetence, we have our zones of competence, we have our zones of excellence, and then we have our zone of genius. And he talks about how a lot of us get stuck in our competence or excellent zones because it's comfortable and it allows us to make a living, right? But as translators, I feel like it's super applicable because a lot of times when we start out as beginning or as translators, we kind of just take whatever work comes to us, which is fine. I think especially as you're starting out, you have to not fake it till you make it. Like if you can't do it, you can't do it. And it's unethical to do that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, for example, you start out with something like a document that I translate today in 30 minutes would have taken me 3 hours, 10 years ago. So, for example, it's a topic that I was working on developing, and I think it's totally fine to, your hourly rate and your per word rate is going to be pretty low, but you're gaining paid experience. So, for example, it's something that, for me, it started out with official document translation. We'll just give that as an example because it's something that for me has really changed throughout the years. So first of all, I started out with those kind of documents coming to me, and I've always kind of done them. And, it's like, okay, you start to realize, and other documents. So for example, medical, I did a few of those to begin with, but I hate medical. It's definitely my zone of incompetence.
Me too.
It's my zone of incompetence. So right away, I realized no, I'm not going to do that. Another thing, right? For example, not translating, but is part of your business, accounting, right? So that's definitely my zone of incompetence. I want to try and delegate or just not accept those types of tasks. If it's translation related, if it's part of my business, I do my best to delegate that. Obviously, when you're starting out, you don't have that luxury, but as you develop your business, you realize what is in your zone of competence and incompetence. So for me, example, if a medical document to me comes today, it's really easy for me to pass that on to someone else or recommend someone else. And then also, you start to realize what kind of specialisms that you want to get into. Another one for me was project management. I feel like it was definitely in my zone of excellence. I really enjoyed it. It was something I really liked a lot. but at the end of the day, it's not what I love to do. So it's really important to allow yourself to develop the parts that you love to do, even though you might not think that it's something that you can necessarily make money with. I feel like, yeah, people sell themselves short on their dreams, and we definitely need to keep that in mind, because that will lead us to being a hamster wheel and burnout if you don't dedicate time to taking care of yourself and doing things that you love to keep you moving forward and motivated.
Okay, so thank you for posting the link to the first book that Jennifer mentioned. It was the big leapexperience.com.
Yeah. The other thing he talks about there that I really related to was upper limiting. He talks about how we self-sabotage when we reach a certain point of success. That's as much as we are allowing ourselves to get to. And so we start to self-sabotage in a myriad of ways. And I didn't realize how much I had been doing that over the years.
And I bet that we've been there, all of us, at some point of our career. I don't think that someone started out as a successful translator already with the right mindset, I bet. If I could share my experience with mindset, I think that my mindset changed, for example, regarding my profession, the moment that I started attending international conferences about translation. It was like a very turning point in my career, and I have written an article on LinkedIn about it. It was a moment that I realized that I can become successful, that I can earn the money that I want, that I deserve it, and I know the way to do it right now, because you gain so much confidence and inspiration from the speakers and the other colleagues attending such conferences. It's not only the content, it's the networking, it's being near to people that they have done it, they have succeeded. So you can take from them not only inspiration, but also ideas how to do it, because they're sharing their knowledge. Maybe nowadays we have the virus and we are obliged to stay home, and I really advise you to do so. I'm doing it. I'm self-isolated third week right now, but the conferences are taking place. For example, after the next week, I'm going to speak about cooperation among colleagues with Martina Ecodelia. Together, it was going to take place online, because it was to take place in Milan, but it was cancelled because of the virus. And also BP conference, which I'm going to speak on Friday, 24th of April, about how to make your happy clients as promoters. So, irrelevant to my speeches, I would really recommend people to attend such events, either online or offline. For me, are better offline, but nowadays we cannot do other ways. So online, and gain inspiration from those people and ideas on how to do it your way, because not every way is our way. Like Jennifer says something, I might say something, or we are sharing our experience. You can take the part of the experience that you can implement in your occasion. Jennifer, are you going to speak somewhere in the next few weeks? Since I mentioned some conferences, is something that you would like to share beside the master class that you gave this Wednesday?
Yeah, I have that master class. I would love to, for anyone. I think you could still see the recording if you sign up on Corinne McKay's website. That one is what I did on Wednesday with you today. I have another podcast coming out, interview with Tex Whitty soon. I think it's in the beginning of May. But yeah, that's what I'm working on so far.
So great. We're going to hear you and see you. The links are going to be shared in the group anyway. We have the masterclass there. So Maria Rosario says, I specialize in legal and financial translations. Now I also translate press releases and other advertising material. It used to be my incompetence zone, really, but now has become my genius. It really motivates me to translate news on the pandemic published on important news media. I feel that I'm being of help. So Maria probably described the situation like changing the incompetent field into a field that we really feel confident about translating. Okay, that might somehow happen in our career. I would be really much interested to know how Maria found out that from incompetent felt competent to do so. Maybe she took some courses, or she did some free voluntary work first in order to gain feedback. Maria, you can share with us in the comments. So Jennifer, you would like to say something?
Yeah, I think that that's a great example, actually, because that was kind of where I was going with my example of the official translations. So again, I think everybody, not everybody, but there's a lot of people who don't want to even do any type of official translations, sworn translations, as they call it in Europe. They hate doing the formatting. They hate dealing with the clients. It's a waste of time. It takes forever. And people say they hate it. And I started out doing it, and I felt really incompetent at it to begin with too.
I'm sorry, Jennifer, can I interrupt you? Because people are saying here that they're having an echo. It's only on Instagram, because Jakub said, you said that there is an echo that it's very difficult to make you follow. Is there an echo in the group also on Facebook, or on the page on Facebook, or on YouTube? Can you tell us in the comments? Is there an echo that makes it difficult for you to follow? Thank you, Jakub, for mentioning that. We're going to fix it next time, because it's the first time that we're broadcasting on Instagram. I bet it's an Instagram issue. It's not on Facebook, but please do let us know in the comments on Facebook. Is there okay? But in any case, Jakub and also the members of the Facebook, it's going to be uploaded on YouTube later. So without any echo, it's going to be a recording with a very great sound. So you're going to listen to Jennifer advice later at your own convenience. Whenever you want, will be available in the group and also on YouTube channel. So sorry for Jakub for that, but you will be able to watch it later. It's going to be recorded anyway. Jennifer, I'm really sorry I interrupted you about going from incompetent to competent in one field. I'm really sorry for interrupting.
No, that's okay. I wonder if I should try and connect the headphones on mine. I don't know if it's on my side or not.
Yeah, but I had an echo on Instagram, but it's working well here on Facebook. Thank you, Francis. I thought that too. So I'm going to change in the Instagram the next time. It is something that I cannot do right now, in order not to ruin the recording. So we're going to continue this way. And for those that are having issues with echo on Instagram, they can find us on Facebook and on YouTube under my name, and also in the Mentoring for Translators group and in the Starting Out Translators group on Facebook and on YouTube. So Jennifer, please go on. Since we have the recording, we are okay.
Maybe that will help. So so I started out with it, and it took me a really long time to get good at it. It took me a really long time to figure out how to do formatting. It took me a long time to, get the proper terminology. So, and then again, it's not the most exciting work, but my moment where I was like, oh, wow, this might be a part of my genius is that when I sat down as part of my burnout, and something that really helped me a lot to prioritize is I sat down and I rated all of my clients and all of my jobs and what I was working on at the time to try and decide what I should not be doing. So for example, I sat down and I had my project management, I had the official documents, I had my regular clients, and I looked at them and I rated them by how much more or less I was making hourly with each. And then I decided to what other values were important to me with those jobs. So for example, I was doing some project management for the Guadalajara International Book Fair through the Translators Association. And so that was more part of my identity and wanting to help, my reputation, right? Even though the money wasn't that great. So I used all of these different factors to kind of rate, what I felt like I wanted to keep doing and what I didn't. And I realized that the official translation was one of my highest paid work. It was some of my highest paid work. And then on the other hand, I realized that even though I loved the project management work, for the amount of time that I was spending on it, for the amount of energy that it was taking from me, it was just totally a no-brainer that I needed to quit. So that's kind of a way that I think that you can sometimes go from a zone of incompetence to realizing that it's something that you really, really love. And
yes, it happens. It's really great when you can do it and realize that you're good at it. So Jennifer, you suggested 2 books. When you said about 2 books, you said the Big Leap and?
There's a couple. There is The Big Leap, and another one that I actually love is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza.
Mm-hmm. I know, yeah.
And the other one this is actually the first one that I read that I really loved. It's called Unfuck Yourself by Gary John Bishop.
Yeah, I've read it, yeah.
I really love that one as well, because it just basically, to me, we go around right? Trying to blame our experiences, we don't take 100% responsibility for our situation, right? Obviously, there's certain things like a certain virus that we can't control, but we have 100% control over our mind and what we believe, and we need to take more responsibility. And that was, to me, a huge message of his book that really helped me. It was like, there's no one else but you who is responsible for your situation. If you are in a certain situation that you don't like, then it's 100% up to you to do something about it. So
we're having the book again. Someone posted. Thank you for posting it.
Yes, the Joe Dispenza's book is actually a little bit more like scientific. So he talks about quantum physics and how basically, again, we create our reality through our thoughts.
So beside the books, because I really read a lot of books about mindset myself, and I mentioned also the conferences, what was that helped you cultivate the mindset besides knowing that is you, that is the problem, and having books reading regarding changing the mindset? What is there any process that you did follow? Did you see any professional like in the field?
Yeah. Okay. So number one, I did start working with a mentor. I've been working with a mentor. I think that it's some of the best money that I've ever spent, and 100% worth it. Because it's so much easier for other people to see where you're getting in your own way. And it's just a lot faster. I mean, if you can, I think, sometimes do it on your own, but it's a lot slower and a lot harder. And it's so worth it to get somebody who's outside of yourself to give you an opinion and help you to, again, see where you are getting in your own way. Because it's not that the answers are from somebody else. It's not about that. It's about getting more of a perspective on where you are limiting yourself, what beliefs that you have that are defeating you before you even begin. And so I think that that's a huge thing. Meditation is something that I think is really important. I always thought it was super woo-woo. So again, like I've been really never woo-woo at all. I'm not a woo-woo person. And all of a sudden I've started to use these two things that I feel are pretty woo-woo, are meditation and affirmations. But they work. And so to me, it doesn't matter if it's woo-woo. Like I said, I've always been super practical. But those are two things that I feel like are just kind of the foundation for being able to do your own internal work. So with the
two things, meditation and affirmations, the two things.
Meditation and affirmations. I think that because for example, with the affirmations, it's really important to sit down and analyze your beliefs. So that was the first thing that I did is you sit down and you analyze, what do I believe about translation and where are these beliefs coming from? So I think that, for example, a lot of people are like, I believe, obviously Spanish, English, I believe that there is a race to the bottom with rates. I believe that it is hard to get new clients. I believe that nobody wants to pay the rate that will allow me to make a living. And I feel that that's something really pervasive that I see, just as an example, online, in forums, in translators groups, that there is that belief. And it's really easy to adopt that as your own because it's something that becomes super unconscious. So you have to consciously, take a look at what it is that you believe and who is telling you these things. So who is it that so for example, I had also a belief business is hard, right? Business has to be hard. Money is bad. Right? It causes problems. It's, you're abandoning other people by being successful.
Yeah. I had the same belief. Do you think it's because of our families or parents that they have the same problems or beliefs?
I do. I mean, all of our beliefs are formed when we're really young, and so as you get older, it's important to take a look at, was it your family? Was it your friends? For me, it was, I think, partially my family, partially, what I've seen, my experiences with friends and family. So yeah, it's important to realize what that belief is, and then realize, does this serve me? Is this something that is going to help me get to where I want to go? And if it's not, then replace it with something else. And that's where affirmations are so powerful, is that you can literally reprogram your brain to believe that.
Exactly. We have the same beliefs here in Greek associations or Greek events of translators. They're all pessimistic. The rates are not higher than 3 cents per word. For example, most of the companies are bottom feeders. From the agencies, the same. There are no very good terms of cooperation. Translators, they do not know their rights or what they could achieve. So whenever I mentor someone here in Greece, it's much more difficult than in other countries, because people are still having the same mind and beliefs that you just described. So it's pretty difficult to change and reprogram the mind if you have been like raised or been working a lot of years in such an environment with the same such beliefs. But what is your answer? And we might, if there's something else you would like to say, we could close with that. To those who say that what is positive thinking and coaching and mentoring, like it's like you said, woo-hoo, or something that's not very practical, and it's something that taking advantage of people, taking their money and without any results. And this is not realistic approach of the life, because we still have problem. We cannot raise our rates. We cannot find high-paying clients. We cannot meet and ends meet, like at the end of the month we cannot pay our bills, for example. And how do you reply to these people? Because I have those people, and especially here in Greece, that they do not believe, and they have like an approach to coaching and mentoring like it's in a very primitive stage here in Greece, if I could say like that. So what do you say to those people? How do you reply to such beliefs?
You know, I to me, it's a very clear that that's a scarcity mindset. And I always just kind of try to challenge people to look at that and say, well, what is it? Why do you believe that? And is that actually true? Because again, like you said, and if you do believe that that's true, then obviously you're constantly going to be finding information to back that up. Right? You're constantly, it's always going to come to you, you know, that it's always, there's always going to be a reason, right? That it's, the rates are so low, the cooperation, people are don't cooperate. I think that I personally try to not work with people that are like that, because they've already defeated themselves before they've ever began. And it's definitely not going to allow them to be successful. I can't do that if they're not willing, right? If they don't see that that is the problem, then I don't see how that we can help people like that to begin with. But if you can start to get people to see, which I think you can, that it is their own, that it's something that you can change in here. That's really it. You are the one who has the control over that. So I try to recommend those types of books, like I said. And I would love to hear what your favorite mindset books are as well.
I'm going to share. I have a bunch, like most of the books that I have here are about mindset. It isn't one particularly. I mostly read about money mindset, because that was what I was missing information about. But as I told you, my changing point in my career was attending conferences and being in a circles of successful professionals and translators. So someone in the group says, no need to contradict them. Your energy is best used to move yourself and those with similar positive thinking forward. That's the best answer. What my answer would be similar to this. My answer is my testimonial from my mentees and the practical growth they have seen in their business, like from being an in-house translator part-time. One of my mentees opened their business and they have making good money still in the crisis, during the crisis. And my results and of my work, the real results and the testimonials, what I get as a result from my mentees and the work I'm doing with them is the only answer I can give them. There's no reason to contradict someone who cannot believe in something that you believe.
And then what do they say? Then they say, oh, it's so easy for you to say, right?
No, they cannot contradict the result. If they see the result, and if we are in the same circle, because Greece is a small country, and they see the result, they see someone successful opening their business during the crisis and succeeding and thanking me for that. Something I'm doing right, something I'm doing in the right way, at least. And whenever I see comments on testimonials or the real result, like I had a translator that went from in-house to freelancer and found clients from the US in the field and specialization they wanted during the crisis. And nowadays I cannot even see them for a coffee because they are so busy translating text for those clients that we found together. So there's no other reason to change their mind. For me, it's the result of my work when it's like obvious to them. Yeah. So that's my answer, and there is nothing else I can say for that. And also, it's also the path of my career and how I'm doing. So if I'm doing good, it's something I'm doing in the right way, most probably. And since we are here today, for me, it's a succession. Like I really love having a professional who used to be the president of the Mexican Association of Translators. He's in Mexico, and we're here live. We're on Instagram. We're having people chatting with us from all over the world. And for me, that's the success of my positive mind and my mindset, which is to help others. And again, Mario shares here how did she change from being incompetent to competent. So I don't know if you see her comments on the screen. Do you, Jennifer?
Yes, I do. Yeah. She went from incompetent to genius at translating press releases by deciding to take on the challenge and reading journalistic documents in English massively. Decided not to be too hard on myself and take it easy as I went along. I think that is some of the best advice, right? We are so hard on ourselves that sometimes, again, we get in our own way by not allowing ourselves to fail. And I also relied on more experienced translators for proofreading my work. Another excellent way to deal with that.
Yeah, there's so many ways. Thank you, Maria, for sharing your own way, because it's pretty interesting. Other ways, taking courses, other ways, having a proofreader. There's so many ways, but you can ask us later. The recording is going to be in the group. Jennifer is a member of our group. You can find her online. I'm going to share her contact detail anyway. I am in the group. You can find me on all social media. Before we close the live, Jennifer, I would like to recap what you said in a very practical list. I always do that in order to keep in mind the practical advice that you just said in order to change the mindset. You said meditation and affirmation helped you. You said you have a mentor, which I have a coach from the US. Is your mentor a colleague or is from another profession? Because mine is from another profession.
Mine too, yeah. I actually specifically did find somebody outside of the profession in this case, yeah.
Depends. I would always advise, depends on what you want, what skills you want to advance and to enhance. So for me, it was like for entrepreneurship and professionally, for example, my business skills. So it's something that I would really need to enhance. And I found the right mentor. But if you would like someone to start out in the business, translation business, for example, I would really suggest to find someone in the same professional to help you out with specific questions that you might have. And they might encounter the same problems as you when they started out. So having a mentor, meditation, affirmation, reading books related to mindset, and we have said some of them here. And also realizing your deficiencies. Is that correct?
Yeah, analyzing your beliefs. Yeah, analyzing your beliefs and what, where those are limiting you, so you can really start to work on those. Because again, there are things that we just don't think about consciously. I mean, how often before you got into this did you sit down and think about, what you believe?
So we are like Instagram stories for 1 hour, so went off. Thank you for those watching us. Like we had 15 people there. It was great for the first live. It goes off automatically after 1 hour. So we were on 1 hour on Instagram live, and we are still here in the Facebook group, Facebook page, and on YouTube. So thank you so much. Is there something else you would like to add about cultivating the right minds and any process advice, tips you would like to share that you didn't do already, of course?
No, I think that we got it. Again, prioritizing, analyzing your beliefs, working actively on your own problems internally, because all of our business problems are personal problems at the end of the day. And if we are the only ones who can figure those out. So yeah, and just thank you so much for having me today.
So much. And the only enemy we have is ourselves. So we have to work ourselves, and that's a time. So how are the things there with the virus? Just one last question. How do you do your everyday life with?
Yeah, I think we're kind of just getting into, I don't know, I think they're calling it stage 2 or whatever, but I feel really concerned. I have to admit, I'm really concerned that people are not taking, I think, it as seriously as they should. And also, I'm also concerned because there are just so many people who are just living from day to day who can't really afford to stay inside their houses. And also the tourism industry is huge here. I live near Puerto Vallarta, and I'm really scared for a lot of people and about what's going to happen.
Something in your everyday life, in your routine? What have you changed in order to adapt?
The biggest change is that my kids are now here all day, and I'm working on doing homeschool with them and trying to, keep the 4 of us from killing each other.
So we had one question in the Instagram that we didn't answer. If you remember that, the Mentors for Translator Instagram account about the future of translation.
Yeah,
it's a whole huge question to answer in one live. But regarding the coronavirus, what do you do regarding getting projects? Have you seen any change in that?
I actually I do remote interpreting. With a company in the United States that does massive events where they call up people on the telephone. And so I do simultaneous interpreting remotely on the telephone. And obviously there's been, that's really popular, and it's been a really great way for people to get news out. And a lot of them are now doing, a simultaneous interpreting into Spanish for that. So that's something that's been really good for me so far. Obviously, this whole thing is awful, but that's been as far as business goes. And I have heard a lot of people say that they've gotten a lot of work either related to the virus or not. The world is not going to stop spinning. This will end. It has to end sooner or later, and the world is going to keep moving forward. I think obviously it's going to be a new reality, and it's important to realize that we have to adapt to that, depending on what your specialties are and what you do. But yeah, like you said, even in a crisis, it's still possible to
I believe there is opportunity, especially for our profession. It was like in the financial crisis we had in Greece and all over the world the past 7-10 years now. Our profession was in the best, in the 10 first professions that they saw rise in their income and their jobs. So I'm very optimistic, and I'm going to see, as you will see too, the results of that. But keep faith and keep your marketing efforts towards the clients that might need your services right now. Think who might need your services, as Jennifer said, for remote.
And adapt, exactly. Remote interpreting, project management, online classes. I mean, there's just terminology management. There's just so many facets to the skills that we have. And sometimes that's what I've learned, is that sometimes you have to kind of look at it in a non-traditional way. Like, how can the skills that I have apply to a different industry, maybe in a way that you didn't necessarily think. So for example, I was reading one about social media managers with different languages. So to me, it's not necessarily translation, but especially for people who need to diversify, who need to keep working, there's always options as really.
And how about all these e-shops and online companies that need to be created because of the necessity of the days? They will need translation of their websites. So we're going to answer only one question, like about Francis. It says, is there any mindset gap between translators who prefer to work with their clients and those who stick to agencies? So Jennifer, you first, and I can.
Well, to me, I think that it's not necessarily, I mean, if they're unhappy working at an agency or with agencies, or unhappy happy with that. I think that is a completely valid way to work. I think that working with agencies is great for a lot of people. I don't see any problem with that. And if they like that, then that's awesome. No, I don't think it's a mindset problem at all. I think it's only a mindset problem if they're doing it and they're unhappy with it. And I think less than a mindset thing, it's more of a personality thing too. And what you want to do and your goals are and your strengths.
Yeah, and you correct me if I'm wrong. Like, I don't think that mindset has to do with any specialization that we have. Mindset is a way of thinking no matter what situation we are dealing with. Like, if they're going to be direct clients or agencies, the mindset should be the same. If I see any gap is on the marketing approach or the way that we approach such clients, which is totally different to a mindset. But the mindset has to be the same. The mindset has to be the positive thing, that what you want from the client, if this client is good for you, even if it's an agency or the direct client, and might be for the direct clients more things to think about rather than an agency where it's like more or less like an in-house position, like you have to deal with less things that you have to deal with the direct clients. Only that's the difference that I see. Thank you, Maria Rosario, that says is going to share this live to the Peruvian Association of Professional Translators. So we're going to be in the Peru. Thank you so much all for being here. First of all, Jennifer, who accepted my invitation. I found really interesting the discussion. I hope you found some advice of Jennifer really useful and you're going to apply them. And I see a comment also, CPD to be ready, but I don't understand. You want a CPD with a specific topic? Is that correct? Or am I not getting it right? And last comment was that we had one question last night about how to take the most out of paid version of LinkedIn and pros, and we decided this is not of today's topic associated with, and what we can do is to create another live for this specific topic. But I can assure you that those who are asking this, I can assure you that you have not taken the most out of the free version. So please be sure that you are using the free version features the most that you can do in order to get the most out of these two platforms. Please read about the free version first before you go into the paid version. So thank you, Jennifer, once again. Is there something that you would like to add before we end live?
No, I think that we covered a lot of stuff today, and you were going to share with us some of your favorite books too. I would love to hear some that you found helpful. And other than that, again, thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it. It's been so much fun.
Thank you too. Thank you so much. I'm going to share the books Jennifer asked me in the group. So stay tuned in the group. If you're not a member, it's a Mentoring for Translators group. We're going live every week. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you all. Bye-bye for now and see you in the group.